Hello, friends, and welcome to the Bikes or Death podcast. My name is Patrick, and I am your host. And I'd like to start today's episode by thanking and welcoming our newest patrons. These are the latest listeners to step up and become sustaining members of the show since last week's episode. So we'd like to give a warm welcome to Courtney NeQuinn, Travis Vliam, Scott McDonald, and Brian Benavente. Thank you all so much for stepping up to be sustaining members of the podcast. It means a lot. I appreciate everybody's support. If you are enjoying this show, if you like this kind of content and you want to help contribute to its ongoing success, please consider signing up as a patron. You can find information at patreon.com/bikes-or-death. And as always, if you want to find out more about Bikes or Death, you can find everything you need at bikesor-death.com. All right, well, I'm excited about today's episode. It is 100% brought to us by RideWithGPS. Literally, it wouldn't be possible without them. When we did the Bikepacking Basics episode a few months ago, the number one question we got was on route building. So I reached out to Kevin Prentice over at RideWithGPS and asked him if he'd be interested in doing a show dedicated solely to route building. They loved the idea immediately and agreed to come on. And so over the last couple of months, Kevin and I have been working on putting on this show and hopefully making it good and informative. Since today's episode is a little bit different, I'm going to just go over a little bit of housekeeping before we hit play. About halfway through the episode, we're going to turn on screen share and actually be working through how to build maps, just some route building basics, and we go kind of deep on other things. But we've recorded it in a way that you can listen to the podcast. I will say that the podcast is about 8 to 10 minutes shorter because I've removed some things that just didn't work in an audio only format. But I've listened to it all the way through audio only, and I think it's definitely worth a listen. But RideWithGPS is also creating a full-length video of the podcast that'll be available to watch today. So be on the lookout for that. They're going to be blasting it on their social media and their newsletter. And of course, we're going to be blasting it as well. So after you listen to the episode, I would invite you to go and look for the video, because with the video, we've gone in and created segments, highlighted chapters, and made it easy for you to find. So just to give you an example of what some of those chapters are going to look like, we're going to do surface types, which is a sneak peek at a new feature that's coming down very soon. So that was really exciting to get to talk about that. We learn how to use the heat maps and the data behind it. We use the mobile route planner to make changes from the road. We go over the 11 different map types, 2 routing services, Google Street View and Google Photos. And then we talk about turn an existing route into your own custom route. So like I said, RideWithGPS is putting that all together right now so that you can have this as a reference to go and watch and rewatch. And, if you just need to find a certain topic, you'll be able to find it easily. So to be able to find that, again, you can just follow RideWithGPS on Instagram or Bikes or Death on Instagram and get a notification there. But also check out ridewithgps.com/journal. There you'll be able to find the full write-up with a link to the podcast, a link to the video, and all the different chapters segmented there. So it's easy to find exactly what you're looking for. So yeah, there's a lot of information on this episode. I really appreciate RideWithGPS helping me out with this and agreeing to come on and put together a great resource. Hopefully this will get people building routes and outdoors exploring on their bikes. What could be more important than that? Honestly, for me, route building is one of the funnest parts about bikepacking. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but I definitely enjoy the planning process of route building. I enjoy creating a route, going and riding it, finding out what I did wrong, and then the adventure starts, and then you got to figure it out from there. And we talk through scenarios like this on today's episode, how to prepare from home, but also you get out on the route and things don't go right and you need to switch it up. What do you do? Well, we're going to tell you on today's episode. So without further ado, let's let Miles Arbor take it away with the Bikes or Death theme song.
You load up your bike, you ride away from home. You could be with your friends or you could be alone. You ride for a day or maybe more. You just love being in the great outdoors. Everything you need is strapped to your bars, including that new pillow you got from Santa Claus. And then you think, oh shit, to yourself. You left that super lightweight tent on the living room shelf. Bikes or death. Bikes or death. Podcast.
All right, well, let's make this happen. Everybody, today on this show, we have a special guest. Kevin with RideWithGPS is here today to teach us everything we need to know about route building. So thanks, Kevin, for coming on the show today.
Hello. It's good. It's great to be here.
Man, listen, we did a show earlier this year called Bikepacking Basics, where we essentially just asked the audience, what do you want to know about when it comes to bike packing? And the number one question that we got was about route building. So I'm really excited that you could be here and we can help to educate people on how to build routes, how to get outside using Ride with GPS. And I specifically wanted to reach out to y'all because in my opinion, y'all have really positioned yourselves as like the route building application. It's the one that I use personally, exclusively for building routes. So yeah, man, thank you for coming on and sharing your expertise with us today.
I hope I can share a little of that expertise. We have a wide, diverse, awesome community that we serve, and we aim for the tools that we make to reflect that community. So whether you're a road cyclist or a gravel rider or a commuter or a hardcore bike packer, or someone like me who can, maybe is just into getting out on an S24O or weekender, we aim to make tools to enable you to go on better rides more often, regardless of your, flavor or style of riding.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Well, I mean, I really want this to be like a really great resource for anyone that's looking to build a route and get outside. Really looking forward to kind of getting nerdy on some maps with you here in a little bit. But before we get into the meat and potatoes, I want to learn a little bit more about Kevin. So why don't you just start off, tell us where you're calling from and what is your job there at Ride with GPS?
I'm calling from wonderful Portland, Oregon. That's where we are headquartered, even though I guess we're now kind of a remote first workforce due to, what's been going on the last year plus. I oversee our marketing right now here at Ride with GPS. I've been here for just about 8 years now. I was the fourth person hired back in August of 2013. I guess one of our owner's wife's staff was actually doing customer support back then, but I guess maybe I was our kind of official first customer service person.
Yeah, in the beginning, it's always it's kind of all hands on deck, grabbing your friends
all
and
of
everybody.
Us, yeah, exactly. All of us had 1,400 jobs.
Yeah.
And I was actually working a full-time job at the time, and I guess. Should I talk about how I started here or how I applied? Would that be interesting?
Yeah, that was my next question. I mean, you've been there, like you said, you were one of the first official employees. So, I mean, you've really seen the growth of the company. So, yeah. Love to hear a little bit more about it.
Sure, yeah. I started in 2007 by our owners, Zach and Colin, who are also engineers at the company. And it kind of became more of a thing around 2009. And they started really working on it with a concerted focus effort around then. And then in 2013, they hired myself. And then a couple of weeks earlier, they hired our head mobile engineer, Kevin, as well. We were the first two hires back in 2013. And I guess I'd like to point out that, at that time, 50% of our company was Kevin's. So it was pretty spectacular, if I do say so myself.
It was a good time to be a Kevin.
Yeah, it was. But I was working just another job. I was an analyst at a chemical company, and it was just kind of a whatever job. And so I was just kind of casually looking and, looking for maybe something better, maybe looking to earn a couple of extra bucks. And so I was kind of just casually looking, and I saw an ad posted on Craigslist for a part-time bicycle technology customer service person. I was like, oh, that's kind of unique and interesting. I'd actually just started commuting a couple years prior because I didn't really like commuting by car to, the job that I had. And so I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I'm interested in this stuff and I like technology. So let's explore this.
Yeah, let's check it out.
But yeah, the most important thing was where the office was, because I was, commuting in 30 minutes to my current job, working 8+ hours. And so, if the office of RideWithGPS was, across town an hour, and then I had to get off my job, ride an hour to the other job, work for whatever I was going to be working for time wise, and then, commute an hour home. That wasn't, that my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, she'd be like, you bozo, what are you doing? You're not going to do any of that stuff.
At that point, you're not making enough money to justify the time.
Right, exactly. So, and at the time, they didn't really have, the address wasn't easily discoverable. I spent hours and hours and hours trying to find an address for them. And after an exhaustive search, I finally found it, and it was literally right around the corner from my current office.
Didn't even need to use RideWithGPS to get there, huh?
No complex routing needed for this one. I didn't even get on my bike. I walked out the door, walked my bike around the corner into the Gotham building, and that's where it was. And that was
meant to be.
It was meant to be. That I wouldn't have applied if it. I mean, it could have been a little farther away, but that was the reason. That was the catalyst for doing this. So I applied and talked with Colin on the phone, interview. And then came in and met the rest of the team. And, that was it, and kind of started, I got off around 3:34 of my current job. I would go in for like 3 to 4 hours in the evening and work, and then go home, and did that till around the holidays, Christmas time later that year in 2013. And then they're like, hey, do you want to come on full time? I was like, oh, yeah, I probably can't be working 2 jobs for the rest of my life. But did give it, a lot of thought. I was, giving up something, permanent and full time to take a risk on this other thing that was kind of obscure, bicycle technology. It's not, petroleum or, whatever.
So you started in 2013. So that would have been like in 2014.
Yeah. Christmas of 2013 was.
Christmas of 2013. Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to come on? So I, had ran up by the boss at home. I was like, hey, I'd like to try this out. I was moderately young or not that old, whatever. I don't know how you quantify those types of things, but, I was in a position where I was, putting pressure on myself to, have the notion that I needed to be working the job that I was going to be working the rest of my life right then. I could still, take a risk, explore some things, try to find something really cool. And so I did that.
Especially for like a really cool opportunity with a cool company, if it's something you're going to do all the time, every single day for your job, to be able to do it with a cool company.
It would be nice if the job was nice. Yeah. So did it. And here we are, about 8 years later, and best risk I've probably ever taken. One of the best decisions I've ever made. It's great. I work with a bunch of great people. The job is great. It's rewarding. It's challenging. I really have a dream job.
That's awesome, man. Well, let's talk about your personal history with bikes a little bit. You mentioned that you were a commuter. So was this more of like a hobby that kind of kicked up a few notches once you started working at RideWithGPS, or how did that go down?
Yeah, that was really it. I had started commuting a few years prior, and that was good and fun, but hadn't really been out on a lot of like recreational rides. I was actually rock climbing most of my free time. I've been rock climbing for years. That was what I did. That was my thing. Then started working here, and we have a bike stipend for new employees. It's important for employees to, have a bike so they can, what we call in the industry, dog food or product. It's important for us to use our product and report bad things or report bugs or report good things, or, we don't like a button that's here, or we need this other thing here, or whatever. So we want to ensure that we provide the resources for everyone here to do that. So after a while, I got a road bike and started using that to commute on. And then we kind of started going on office rides, 20-mile rides or 30-mile rides, and we have some hills here. That was it. So just kind of started to inch my way a little further. Eventually got a bike with larger tires and started to dabble into the gravel stuff. And then that was it. I just started riding more, and then that's what I wanted to do on the weekends. I wanted to go ride gravel, and away we went.
I can imagine that working in marketing, seeing this stuff day in, day out, I can only imagine that it just ignites this like desire to go and do it. I mean, you just can't sit there and do it on your computer all day long and not have that fire to go and do it yourself, I think.
The FOMO is real with this position. Very real. And it's more real now than ever. Given that we're in a pandemic and I got two little, you're a dad, I'm a dad. I don't have endless amounts of free time to just leave Friday lunchtime and come back Sunday late afternoon. That ain't happening.
Those days are gone, my friend. Those days are gone. Right. So what kind of riding are you doing these days?
The small quantities of time that I have. We've got the West Hills here in Portland that are pretty good for road riding. I used to be very burnt out on riding the same thing, the same climbs over and over. But now that I'm riding so infrequently, they're not so bad to get back on if you haven't ridden it in like a month or two or whatever.
Oh, for sure.
I'll, occasionally be able to get out for longer gravel rides. Washington County, just to the west of us, has some good gravel. The Gorge area, if you're going to hop in a car and go somewhere, we do have some spectacular gravel routes in the area if you want to, have a little bit of travel time.
How far do you have to drive to get there?
You could drive, the Washington County stuff, you could ride there. You would have, I guess I'm in Southeast Portland. I'd have a 2-hour ride to get to the gravel. So, for me, that would probably be too robust of a day if I was going to ride 2 hours and then go ride 2 hours of gravel and then ride 2 hours back, or at the very least wouldn't have the time to do that. If you want to get in a car, you can be somewhere in 45 minutes and have some really, really primo stuff. We've got a lot of awesome riders, a lot of great communities here. We have a group here called Our Mother of the Mountain, go by OMTM, who have developed the most unbelievable gravel rides, around town, 30 minutes away, an hour away, 2 hours away, just the most highly curated, perfect stuff. So there's always a nice long list of stuff to go back and redo or new stuff to go try.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I find recently with the limited time that I have that I'm driving out of town, getting out of town and going straight to the gravel roads. I have several good routes that are within like a 25-30 minute drive from me, and I call it skipping the bullshit and get into the good shit.
Well put.
I have a feeling that you and I might be in a little bit of a different situation in that your cycling infrastructure where you live in Portland is probably way better than what I have here in Texas.
Yeah, that's probably accurate. Portland's pretty good. We've got a decent amount of infrastructure here. To the outsider, it would probably be, a mecca of sorts. As a resident, I think there's always room for improvement or whatever. But I'm not originally from here. I was born and raised in Kansas. I've got a brother in Austin. I've got a brother in Dallas. I have definitely seen firsthand the lack of infrastructure and the lack of good riding. So yeah, definitely. I'm sure it's, pretty different.
For sure. But Austin, though, Austin has some great bike infrastructure, and that's a place where actually jumping ahead just a little bit, but I love to use your heat maps because you can literally go to a town like Austin or Portland and just fire up the heat maps and immediately see, you know, the roads that the local cyclists are riding, the preferred roads in the area. So yeah, I mean, I use it that way quite frequently.
Yeah, and that's one of like the big, you know, when we knew we wanted to do this for a long time, and then we finally got around to developing the heat map. And that was really, you know, one of the big scenarios that it aims to solve. You know, you fly in somewhere, and you know, maybe you have a bike, but maybe there's bike share there or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, how do I get into the city now? Or how do I get to my hotel? Or how do I get to my Airbnb? It's like, oh, we'll just open up the heat map, and you can see where everyone in that town is riding, and that's a pretty good indicator of what the most, you know, it's an indicator of the most popular, you know, routes, right. Which also generally correlates to, you know, I wouldn't ride on dangerous roads if there was a road right adjacent to me that had a bike lane or a share or whatever. So I'm going to ride in the bike lane and the share, and those things generally line up pretty well together.
Right. Correct. So let's talk a little bit about RideWithGPS itself. How was it started, and what was the vision in the beginning? And just give us a little history.
Came about in 2007 by our owners, Zach Ham, who was a computer science major down in Eugene at the University of Oregon, and one of his good friends from high school, Colin King, who was in the computer science program just north at Oregon State University. And Zach was it was kind of like a class project, actually, where he kind of had the idea of a platform to plan routes for bicycle rides and actually motorcycle rides. They've both been riding motos for as long as I've known them. Actually, our original logo was a bicycle helmet and a motorcycle helmet. We still kind of laugh about that. But they started working on it together as a platform to plan routes to then get on your Garmin device. That was like the missing link. So it was kind of a route planning platform for bicycles and motorcycles. You know, whether it's, you know, it was a cool project, and also probably fulfilled a personal desire for them to find and plan cycling routes along with, you know, backcountry moto routes as well. And then I think at one point they just tossed up like a donation button at some point, and just to like see what was going on, and people started donating. Like, hey, like we really need this. There isn't anything around like this. And, you know, that was around that time, you know, maybe 2009 or so, kind of Strava came on board. But they had started with a mobile app as opposed to like the web presence, whereas we started from the other side of the hill and started with the route planner. We didn't have a mobile app for a number of years. It was the route planner on the web. And then it just became more and more of a legitimate thing. Probably a registered business, maybe around 2009. And then continued iterating on it. And then 2013, when I came on in August, was the launch of the new kind of website. They redesigned everything. The motorcycle helmet went away. They refreshed everything. And that was like, boom, here it is.
Do you know why they switched away from motorcycles and focused primarily on just bicycles?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about the motorcycle part. We've just always, you know, cyclists are who use us. You know, there are certainly lots of other, you know, there are tons of moto people that use us. Lots of runners use us. I actually, with the limited amount of time I have, I'm actually more so a runner now because I can just get out and run 4 miles in 30 minutes, and that's the time I've got. There's all sorts of weird stuff. So snowplow departments use our navigation and route planners to create routes and do stuff like that.
Snowplowed.
There's like ice cream truck delivery routes. Anything you can imagine. There's plenty of one-offs, and it's pretty wild.
Paper. I'm thinking as a you know, when I was growing up, like 16, I had a paper route. You know, if you had RideWithGPS, you could do POIs for all the houses, and you could just
We're gonna corner that paper route. Corner that paper route
market.
But we've always very consciously remained committed to cyclists. That's predominantly who we are. It's predominantly who uses us. It is a GPS product, so you can, I use it for runs. Lots of people use it for runs.
Yeah.
And there's some things there where we would like to fix where if, when I go on a run, it shows like Kevin went on a ride. It's like, well, it's kind of a run and that's not really a big thing. So we're looking to kind of, shore up a few of those smaller things. But we've just, if we're working on something that's running focused, what we're not doing? We're not working on something that's cycling focused.
Right.
And we're committed to cyclists.
Well, at some point, companies need to determine what their you need to be good at something, right? You need to focus on something, especially in the beginning as a new company. You got to do something very well, and then you can work on probably branching out, I would think. But do you know what problem was RideWithGPS looking to solve primarily? I mean, was it the route building that was the guiding force?
Yep. It was route planner. People needed a place to easily plan routes to then get onto their Garmin devices.
All right.
That was really, if you needed, there were some other, factors there, but if you had to boil it down to one thing, that's what it was. Wahoo wasn't a thing back then. It just wasn't a thing. Not to say, we love Wahoo and have a great relationship with Wahoo, but Garmin's were pretty much the only thing going on back then. And smartphones really hadn't taken off yet.
Sure.
They were there, and kind of apps were coming out, but it was like, people want to plan routes and people want to know where they're going. And so that was, there was a need in the market, and this filled that need.
Yeah. One thing that I wanted to, it's worth mentioning maybe, is that I personally shed my Garmin device probably 3 years ago and have switched totally to an iPhone for navigating. I mean, I find it to be easy because you have everything. You've got a camera, you can navigate, you can look something up if you need to, and you have service, and it works really well. I mean, from your app, there's a lot of functionality for creating routes and also altering routes. So can you talk about the transition between, going from a Garmin only to having this app, and maybe some of the pros and cons of each? Because, for me, I'm solely with my iPhone, but I know other people use their Wahoo or their Garmin or whatever.
Yeah, I think the two big things that we hear are battery life of a phone, and then the hesitancy of people to put a phone on their handlebars in case it pops off or in case they crash or whatever. I use an iPhone. I've only used our iOS app forever. You already said all the reasons why I use it without me saying it. I'm familiar with it. I think the biggest thing was I already have it. Aside from I'm not going to tell anybody. Yeah, I'm not going to tell anybody to throw away their Wahoo or throw away their Garmin. But if you don't have one of those, I would suggest trying to use your mobile phone for something, because you can get nearly everything that a standalone GPS device offers. And if you're concerned with battery life, like maybe I was when I started going out and doing overnighters and stuff, I just bought like a $16 battery pack, and it gets me. I've had it for a number of years now, and it gets me 4 full phone charges. So I can leave. I leave on day X, and my phone's charged. We offer everything to where you can do everything with your phone in airplane mode, so you're not consuming hardly any battery at all. I can get to my destination at night. I can charge it up while I sleep, and then I can do the next thing the next day. And then I can repeat, and then repeat again. And now I've got a number of days where I'm just using my phone.
That's been my experience 100%. I have an Anchor. Actually, I got it out just so I figured, I have this little battery pack. I paid $30 for it on Amazon. It recharges my phone from dead 5 times. Yeah. And whenever I go on rides, I'm usually in airplane mode. I flick it on if I need to do something, but essentially I don't want to hear from anybody. I have it on airplane mode. It's saving, battery life. And I found the battery life, honestly, I can leave my screen on, have it in airplane mode, and follow the route on my device. And I found the battery life to go like all day. I mean, it does not, I don't think it's bad, as long as if you have your Bluetooth on and you've got your cell phone on and you're like doing a bunch of other stuff, then yeah, but
Yeah. And that's the thing is, if you've got your screen on all the time, if you're connected, you left Wi-Fi on and your phone's trying to do enough, all these things, that's what will start draining it. But yeah, downloading things for offline use, the voice navigation, so people can, the device, the phone, the app can tell you what's coming up, what you have to look forward to, so you don't have to have your screen on all the time. Those
I
things
like
are...
it because it's good. Sometimes I'll be honest, like I like to look at all the data and the numbers, but sometimes it can be distracting from the experience. So I try to like just turn off my phone completely and allow, like you said, you got the notifications, and stuff. So
that was kind of the impetus for adding a mute button into the app, where it's like, I don't always need these things happening. And for us, this was also the impetus of putting the way our audio navigation works is you can get a warning a quarter mile before a turn. So you get an audio notification, be like, in a quarter mile, turn right. Then as you get near the turn, we will give you another audio notification and we'll say, turn right onto Patrick Street. And then after you make that turn and we clear that queue, if your next turn is farther than, I believe, a quarter mile away, we'll then give you another cue that says in a half mile, turn left, or in 30 miles, turn left, or whatever, depending on the next cue. And I think that's really like an underappreciated, the after cue is kind of the underappreciated cue where it's like, okay, when you get like in 7 miles, turn left. And for me, it's like, okay, I don't have to do shit for 7 miles except enjoy, pardon my French, but I got nothing. I don't have turns. I don't have anything. It's just the road ahead of me for the next 7 miles, and I can space out. I can do whatever I want. I don't have to pay attention to anything other than what's in front of me.
That's a great point, a great tip, and I'm gonna employ that. You're right. If you use that after, you can just say, "Man, 7 miles, don't have to worry about it." That's a great tip. The other one that I never have heard that or thought about not having on your handlebars due to damage, but you put your Garmin or your Wahoo on your handlebars too, right? And I guess maybe the ideas are a little more durable and maybe a little bit less expensive, but I don't know. You still got a $400 something thing on your...
They're definitely more rugged, and I think it's more so like my phone is my emergency lifeline, and I don't want something to happen to that.
It's a valid point.
Yeah. So, and I totally get that. Yeah. I've also been mountain biking and crashed and broken my wrist, and the phone was totally fine. So I am a real world use case that the phone was still fine.
Yeah. I've had friends drop, they put their cell phone on top of their truck, go down the highway 70 miles an hour, and the phone is fine as long as you have a case. I don't know. Ultimately everybody can make their own distinction of what they want. But I think the point being is if all you have is an iPhone or whatever your phone is, and you're using the application, I found it to be very good. And with a couple little tricks with battery life and stuff, it's a totally valid option. I know Garmin's have better battery life and more durable, and probably Wahoo and stuff, but like I said, I don't use them anymore, so I don't really have any real firsthand knowledge that I could speak to. But if you don't mind, I think the two big dogs in the industry are Strava and RideWithGPS, and in my mind, this is just the way I look at it, but I'm interested to get your perspective. Strava to me is kind of like the Facebook of cycling, and and RideWithGPS I use exclusively for route building. In my mind, it is the best route building tool out there, and that is the biggest distinction. You can build routes on Strava. For me, RideWithGPS has more features, more functionality, better, more maps, all that stuff. So can you talk about that? Because those are going to be the two that most people are most familiar with.
Yeah. And I would, we consider ourselves different, even though we're obviously in the same marketplace, and there's definite overlaps in, what we offer. And, we have a lot of people who use us who also use them. And that's certainly, a very real world scenario. But in terms of like things that we focus on, we consider ourselves to be different, and we focus on different things. And I think, a lot of that is, while there is overlap, our audiences are, a bit different. Their audience would probably tend to be more focused on, metrics and segments and analytics and data, and then the social aspect of, the things that they're doing. Whereas, right, we're committed to the route planner and committed to adding tools to the route planner and committed to our mobile app and committed to adding tools to our mobile app and to the navigation, the navigation tools that we're working on. And I think, over time, we've just kind of slowly moved away from the kind of the parallel line of, they had a mobile app and we had a website, and then they came out the website, and then we came out the mobile app, and we're, kind of moving back and forth and doing these other things, or doing things that the other one was doing. Nowadays, like, we don't sit around talking about what they're doing and what they did and the need to do that. And I'm sure that they're probably not sit around talking about us being like, oh, those guys, we're going to go get them and, do everything that they're doing.
I don't listen to other podcasts thinking the same thing. It's like you just stay in your own lane and you focus on, like we were saying, the things that are important to you, the things you're prioritizing, the functionality of your app that you want to prioritize. And I think, is it fair to say, maybe you don't get on Strava, I don't know, but I am one of those people that use both, and I'll use Strava just to record a ride, but I intentionally don't log every ride in RideWithGPS because I don't want it to be cluttered. Like I try to keep that for all of my routes that I'm building, all the trips that I've gone on. Like I just make that distinction where if I'm just going on a ride, I'll use Strava. But if I'm like going on an adventure, if I'm going on a longer thing, if I need to create a route and need more functionality, I use RideWithGPS.
We all certainly use them as well. We got to know what's going on. Okay. We got to know, we got to know what everybody's doing.
So your blinders aren't on that good, but
definitely not. No. Which is good. We dog food our stuff, and we got to dog food everybody else's stuff. So we certainly do that. And it leads to very good things. Last year, we introduced the ability to sync your RideWithGPS rides over to your Strava account automatically. And when we start talking about it, people are like, I thought you guys were mortal enemies. Like, what are you guys doing? It's like, no. Like, the amount of times that people have mentioned to us about, I'm going to use your navigation. I'm planning routes. I'm going to navigate them, but I just need my ride over on Strava. It's like, oh, well, okay, we can do that. So now, and it ended up being a very good decision for us. Now come use our mobile app and you get navigation, and you still can record all your stuff. It's exactly the same. And then when you're done and you click save, your ride's automatically over on Strava. So we were able to carve out more, mobile activity and mobile desire, because really the end goal was just using all of our stuff, and they just wanted the ride over there. So we accommodated that.
Well, I could see like people wanting all of their ride, like if they were using it like me, where and I don't follow my metrics too closely, but I know a lot of people do. And if they want every ride cataloged in one area, maybe that's the way they want to do it. So,
and I would also point out the differences in our companies, in that, like, we get all of our money from our members, and that's it. And that's always been the case since 2007, or whenever the donation button was placed on the site. Whereas them and others, have received funding. In some cases, lots of funding. And people don't give other people money without wanting a say in things. So, we don't have to listen to anyone except our community.
Yeah.
And it's, it's scary. And I've told this, I've explained this kind of point of view before, where it's scary because I'm not just sitting next to this huge bag of money that can kind of act as a safety net, but it's also refreshing that we can do whatever we want.
Yeah.
We don't have to listen to anybody. We don't have to listen to somebody who's maybe not even a cyclist. They just happen to have a bunch of money that they gave us.
I'm curious, like on that note, how are you interfacing with the community and getting feedback and that kind of stuff?
I would proudly proclaim that we have the best customer support in the business, maybe the best customer support of any company in the universe. It's always been at the forefront of the company. The majority of our employees for the longest time were customer service people. Not only does it provide support for our community and answer questions for our community, it's the eyes and the ears. It's, we're not physically, we're virtually on the ground, but it's, kind of the same as being on the ground and listening to, what are people's issues? What are they having problems with? What do they like about the other company that, the other platform that they're using? What do they dislike about the other platform that they're using? And I think, if you've ever emailed info@RideWithGPS.com, I would imagine you've probably had a pretty good experience. And, our goal is to make everyone, we don't only give support to paid members. We give support to everyone. We have 7-day-a-week support. We make videos for people. We give them images. We walk them through everything.
Come on, podcast.
That's right. Exactly. It's worked. It is, for us, it is a proven success formula, and it will always be the case for us.
Yeah. I love to hear that. So you brought up your paid service, and that was one thing I wanted to touch on. Let's talk about the differences. Is it just basic and premium? Are those the two levels, and what are the differences?
We have starter is the free level where you can record rides, you can plan routes, you can analyze stats, you can view the heat map when you're viewing a route or a ride on the web. One very important thing I would point out is that in the mobile app, when you're recording, the heat map overlay is free to everyone, regardless of your account level. That was a very conscious decision that we made. Like you said, if you're landing at an airport in a new area or whatever, we're like, whoa, wouldn't it be amazing if anybody could just start recording and view the heat map?
Yeah.
That's what we did.
I think that's cool that y'all did that.
We then have the basic tier, which is primarily focused on the mobile app. So basic will get you the mobile route planner, the ability to download routes for offline use, voice navigation, live logging in the mobile app. And then premium gets you all of that. And then on the web gets you all of our advanced planning tools in the route planner. And then some other kind of like fringe ride analysis stuff. And
worth noting that patrons of this show get 10% off membership.
20.
20?
Yes.
20. 2-0.
Too generous.
Yeah, y'all are doubly generous. No, I mean, I think it's worth it. I mean, if you can, especially if you're saving money on buying a new unit, maybe get the premium. It's just so much fun. Yeah, that's what I do, so right. I think there's a lot of value in the premium service. Do y'all do like a 30-day free thing, or is it?
We do. You can sign up for a trial.
So you get to try
it
out. Okay, yep. Cool. I've had it for so long, I didn't remember if I got a trial or not. So you brought up heat maps, and that's revolutionized route making, really, in my opinion, and it seems to be a fairly new thing. What is heat maps? Where does it come from? And explain to people, what it is and how we've touched on it a little bit, but what are heat maps, and where does all that information come from? That's what I want to know.
Information comes from our user base. And this was we introduced this a year ago or so, and it was the longest requested feature that we've ever gotten. Strava had a heat map when you were viewing content on their site, but everyone was planning over on our site. And one of the most common scenarios we got was, I'll have two windows open. I'll be planning on your site in this window, and I'll be referencing Strava's heat map over here. Exactly,
100% me.
Yep. So,
I have three, because then I sometimes have the Google Street satellite view, which I know we can get to in yours, but sometimes I had all three going.
Right. Yeah. Never too many windows. Of course.
Never too many.
So we should do this, and then we finally got around to doing it. So we had all the data. We had the same data. We all have ride data, and privacy is a big, very important for us. We don't want to misplace the trust of our community. So we're going to take all this ride data, and then we're going to exclude all private trips And then we're going to anybody that has a private account with us, you can set your profile to private by default. We'll exclude those rides as well. And then we ended up with this database of millions and millions of rides. And then that is the heat map data that you see.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Now, for me, for example, all my stuff is set to private, which no one can see what I do unless I share it with them. And it also doesn't get recorded to heat maps. What is there an option to just keep it private if you viewed my profile, but allow my data to be shared with heat maps?
I think it's coming. You aren't the first person to actually ask us that. We've gotten that a number of times. So I do think it's coming.
Yeah. Because I don't mind. I like to contribute my data to, the heat maps, but
sure, yeah.
I have projects that I'm working on and stuff, and I don't always want people, I'm releasing things when I'm ready to release them and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah. So yeah, that's, it's a good time. One of the things that we discussed prior to this was what's next, what's coming.
Yeah.
We're currently working on personal heat maps. So the ability for you to, see your heat data as opposed to everyone in the universe's heat data. So there are iterations coming, and then, other settings there, such as the ability to contribute your ride data and still keep because we anonymize everything, obviously.
Right. Yeah, that'd be a cool feature. So you could do your own personal heat map and make it public or not public, or.
Yeah, well, you could keep your stuff private, but still see your personal heat map. So you could load up all your rides. And then from there, we're going to work on the ability to select trips from that heat, which we're super stoked on. So if you're viewing heat map and you see a road that's got, tons of heat and it looks all fiery, or maybe you see something obscure out in the middle of nowhere, the ability to, perhaps right click and see a list of trips and then view that trip. So you can actually see what rides somebody did out in the middle of nowhere, or what all these rides on this really popular road, like where are they going? Where did they come from? Stuff like that. Gonna be awesome.
Super. I love that. So for example, like my restaurant tour in Sam Houston National Forest, if someone pulled up the heat map, they put their cursor, they're not seeing the route, but if they put their cursor where they see, because you can actually, if you go to heat map, you see the restaurant. It's been ridden so many times. It's right there. So someone could go and they'd hover over it, right click over it or something, and it would populate with, hey, this is a route that's on this area. These are some other rides, kind of deal.
Yeah. In a point of clarification, no routes are included in the heat data. All trips, things that were recorded with a mobile app, are uploaded from a Garmin or a Wahoo.
Yeah.
But yeah, you'll be able to write.
But what if you did it as because whenever I do that route, I always record it as it's like one trip.
Yes, correct. So that's included. That would be included.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
So you'll be able to click that and then see, Patrick's restaurant tour trip and be able to select that, or, January 1st, 2021 ride or whatever by so-and-so. And then
from there, I would assume you can also filter based on distance and some other metrics, maybe, or no?
I think in terms of...
I know we're getting ahead. I'm sorry.
No. This is great. This is best. It's an all heat map show. But in terms of the personal heat maps, those are the things where we're going, is being able to filter your own heat on, when if we do it the right click method on the general heat map, you would see this route, this distance, this elevation gain. Do you want to view it or not? So you wouldn't be clicking blindly. We would give you some basis of what it was. And then for your personal heat maps, being able to hopefully filter by date, or filter by distance or elevation gain, or maybe you want to filter on a particular bike that you've set up as a piece of gear or something like that. We just have to work through the back end side of how we do we spend a little bit more time up front and load all the data all at once into the screen and then you get to do it? Or do we quickly load some stuff up and then we kind of have to then, each time you make a selection or a filter, we kind of fuss the data then. It takes a couple seconds to load that data. So
Yeah. Well, I know that's all kind of still in the works, so we won't hold your feet to the fire too closely. But no, it's exciting. I mean, I think the heat maps have just, like I said, completely revolutionized route building and just being able to easily create routes and go ride in almost any area. So it's exciting to hear like what's coming down the pipeline. Okay, maps. So we click on Ride with GPS, and on the right top hand side, you've got 11 map options. So I figured I'd give you an opportunity to talk about just, what are some of your favorites, or why 11 maps?
People want options.
Yeah.
And you can break it into more kind of concrete. Let's talk about it in terms of geography. In North America, Google is still kind of the de facto, people are used to Google. When you talk about, driving directions or directions in general or whatever, it's Google, Google. But most other places, it's still OSM, OpenStreetMap. So you get into the EU, and it's not, from our experience, people aren't planning routes in one of the Google-based maps. They're planning it in RWGPS or the OSM maps. So, and we are essentially a 50-50 North American international company. So we need to cater to our audience. And
Makes
therefore
sense.
we offer, so therefore we are, keeping these options around. And there's very important things. Would we love to not pay the bill that we pay to Google each year? You're damn right. We would. But people like satellite and hybrid maps.
And Street View.
Street View will never get away from Street View. So when you click that drop down, you'll see map, terrain, satellite, hybrid at the top. Those are all Google-based maps. They use Google's tiles for those map layers, and they also use Google's routing service for those layers as well. The next one down, RWGPS, those are our map tiles. We created and styled those and own those tiles. OSM.
You want to share your screen and you can be showing some of them while you're talking about them. Yeah, we're gonna be using the maps heavily here very soon, so might as well fire up that bad boy.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, let me know.
I'm ready to get it into the map. Ooh, look at it! Look at that beautiful Ride with GPS. Yeah, so there's all the maps, and you got to actually scroll down to see all of them. There's so many. I had to count. There was 11.
Right. Yeah, there are many. I'm going to over here on the right-hand side, map, terrain, satellite, hybrid, Google-based maps when you're planning, when you're clicking. And actually, so I'm in map. This is Google Maps using Google's routing service. And I'm planning, and it takes me, kind of a funky way. It's like, well, I don't want to go through that. I don't want to go through that way. Like I wanted to go right here, but Google didn't allow me to do that. So I'm going to select RWGPS, and making that selection switches the map tiles. It also switches the routing surface to OpenStreetMaps routing, as does all of the rest of these map tiles. So OSM.
So the only ones that aren't using Google Google is maps, satellite, and hybrid.
And terrain.
Terrain, the top four.
Top four Google, the rest of them are various, ours and then other map styles that we license that all use OpenStreetMaps.
Okay, that's really good information.
And so here, undo that. So here it didn't let me go. This is Mackenzie Pass, very famous route here, but it's closed during the winter time because it's snowed in. And there's, Google downloads transportation department data from various transportation departments as they close down roads, and those downloads get processed and uploaded to Google Maps and their routing service. And then we're constantly updating our routing servers to get those updates. So, we download Google's, hey, Mackenzie Pass is closed. Well, a couple of days later, it's closed on our route planner as well. But it's always nice where you can switch map styles. So go from a Google-based routing map to an OSM-based routing map. So here's RideWithGPS, or I can go to OSM or whatever. I'll click undo. It's actually being updated kind of right now. Maybe everyone has it closed right now. So let's try to... I wonder if they actually updated it. They're actually kind of... Well, we're in like
2 days ago.
Well, right. Yeah, you saw it 2 days ago.
Yeah, we baited this 2 days ago and it worked.
Or no, they heard us and they fooled us.
This is like what was it when Tesla was revealing their bulletproof glass and they tested
And
the
he
bullet,
just smashed it.
and he just smashed it.
Yeah,
Once you get live, once you're recording, man. There we
go. So yeah, this is always kind of the go-to one for me, where Google closes it down, but OSM will allow you to route on it, because OSM is totally different and they don't have those updates. And generally, things that you can't do in a Google-based map, you can do in an OSM-based map. So, right, if you're ever using the planner and you're using one of the Google-based maps, and you get some kind of silly pop-up that's like, no cycling route found, switch to one of the OSM-based maps, and oftentimes you can kind of get around that. And then when you're done with that problem area or trouble spot, you can always switch back to your preferred map and go back to whatever routing service you're using. So you can do these things in real time.
And one thing I've noticed with the different maps is that a lot of them show different things, different roads, forest roads specifically, those kinds of things that aren't maybe mapped as well on other maps. Do you know why that is, that you're seeing different things with different maps? I mean, wouldn't all the maps kind of pull all the data from the same place or something? I mean, I don't know how all this stuff works, but
I mean, no. I mean, we'll start with the two differences of, Google is Google and Google does what Google does. Whereas OpenStreetMaps is, people contribute to the data of OpenStreetMaps. And I think that's the popularity, like over in the EU, of OpenStreetMaps has hung around forever, because it's great. A new path opens up and people go out and ride and they submit that path to OpenStreetMaps, and then it gets updated and it's available to everyone. Something closes down, there's road construction or whatever, like it's, users are contributing to the success of the database. So they are very different. They're very different things that are getting updated at various times or not getting updated at various times. And then, a bunch of different entities. OSM is the official OSM, like map tiles. Whereas these other two are not official OSM ones. They're map styles that we found from other organizations. We're like, oh, this is cool. They provide cool data. OSM Outdoor is really cool, and it provides some pretty good topography information. So if I really zoom in here, your little numbers here, this is giving me 10-foot increments. This is valuable information to have, and therefore it's important for us to offer it in the planner.
Yeah, so that's, I think, what I wanted to point out to people is I mean, it is good to know the difference between OSM and Google. I actually didn't know that. I've always just used it to find things that you might not be able to find. It could be like a water source or a hiking trail. I mean, they don't always pop up on every level. So going through, you're really able to kind of explore and find things that may not show up in other areas. Then obviously there's a benefit of, maybe a route doesn't work in Google, but you can try it in an OSM and it'll work. What about like is there a way to find paved versus gravel? And another question kind of in that same vein is public versus private land.
Yeah, surface type would be the next, aside from, it was heat maps, and now the last big remaining thing people ask us for is surface types. So currently, right now, a great option would be, switching to the hybrid map or a satellite map and zooming in. Okay, so here's the Stampede route I was looking at. So if I really want to zoom in, it's like, okay, here's a road. But if I go to hybrid, it's like, okay, that looks pretty gravelly to me, at least. And generally things you can look for are solid white lines on the outskirts of the road, or a dashed yellow middle line, which would be other indicators of a paved road. Yeah.
One trick that I've found for gravel, and this, I mean, again, this kind of, a lot of my route building is in Texas, but what I've found is in city centers, or I mean, if it's a small rural area, it'll be paved, but then it'll quickly go to gravel. So if you're like, okay, well, this route if I want to know if this long section is gravel, I just kind of start if there is a city center or somewhere more populated, and like look there and look for a road transition where you can kind of see those pop up.
Right. Yeah. And then the most prominent tool we like to do is, so we have Street View. This is a little Street View guy. I like to click and drag him, and I kind of just hold him here. And what this does is we will highlight all of the roads that Google has recorded Street View on, and the ones that are not recorded, they have not driven on, and they have not Street Viewed. And a decent general rule of thumb is the ones they have not Street Viewed generally tend to be unpaved roads. And so this is certainly a case. So if I Street View here, this is a highway, it's paved, it's Street View available. But the one we were looking at on here earlier, there's nothing there. Google did not drive that. They're inching into getting more unpaved and gravel roads, but for the most part, there's just like, Street View every paved road, in the universal expanse of time, and steer clear of the gravel and dirt and off-road type stuff. And that
that's
rule
a good
is still
tip.
and so that still kind of stands true here. And if you want, at kind of these pinch points, if you will, it's like, okay, let's Street View this and see what's up. It's like, kind of, there's a cattle guard.
Yeah.
To me, it's like, okay, that is a big transition to gravel right there. Big giveaway. So you could always kind of do these little offshoots here, or, if you're on a Street View available road, and all these little offshoots aren't Street View available, drop your little man right at the intersection and check it out.
Right.
And this one's actually kind of cool. I just noticed you can actually see the sign. So Deschutes River Road access, dead end 17 miles. Still that, more, information telling me this is not something that somebody's maintaining on a, 365 basis.
For sure. Now, what about public and private land?
Nothing yet. We're exploring that. It's easy to, or not easy to, I should say. There are very general private, public, like Forest Service versus BLM type overlays that may not have, the most up-to-date information that we could do, or that we could have. And then there's other, very robust, it's like, okay, private land, Forest Service land, sure. But there's still, if you really zoomed in, and if anybody zoomed in at private public lands overlays, there's a lot more information once you start zooming in. It's like, okay, zoomed out, this looks like it's all Forest Service land or whatever. But then when you zoom in, it's like, oh, this is Bob's land or whatever.
There's a lot of private inholdings that you have to be aware of.
Right. Yeah. And so we're looking at that, whenever this sort of issue, is definitely, more prominent, I would say, over here in the States, and whenever we do things, we think, we have to think on kind of like a global scale. It's like, we're going to invest tons and tons of time in this thing that's very important to a very small piece of our community, or a small piece of our geographic community that isn't applicable or even relatable to everyone else. So, all these little, kind of nuanced things that we have to juggle. Not to say that public-private lands is something that's small and nuanced and wouldn't be a benefit to, a lot of people. It's certainly not to a tiny swath of people. But,
so what, what I do in Texas, I've mentioned this many times, but it's like 3% public land and 97% private. But, where we are, about 50 minutes away, we have the Sam Houston National Forest. And that's a perfect example of where there's tons of private land inside the National Forest. And one thing that I come across, not super often, but I do come across it, where I'm routed onto and through private land. One way that I've addressed that at home from my desktop is I do what you were just talking about, is zoom into the Google Street View and look for fences, on the main roads. Right. When you're turning off onto one of these roads, is there a fence? Is there no trespassing sign? That kind of thing. Do you have any other tips for?
Yeah, I mean, nothing like super concrete. We found instances where you'll see, this is totally a shot in the dark here, but, I look at, someplace where there's heat, lots of heat, and then suddenly the heat is gone.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, if it's on something that has street view, I could street view that and you would see something like a no trespassing sign or a private property sign. Or, out here with lots of, government owned land, it's a gate. There's gates everywhere here. And so that will, it's like, oh, okay, I'll look at the heat. And if there's a sharp drop off in the heat, then that's probably something I should maybe steer clear of.
Yeah. So the heat maps, again, are just critical for route building. I mean, if you're going along a major road and you see, it's taking you on somewhere where no one has been before or very few people have been, that might be a good indicator. And maybe look at it a little closer.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Before you find yourself trespassing.
Yeah. And this is an interesting one where OSM actually shows the road not going through. Whereas if we toggle back to
Google
didn't have anything, but
no, it was
the
there.
The heat is
map.
there. The heat is there. And this is also, right. So let's schedule episode 2 on, crazy map stuff.
Yeah. Because this is what happens whenever you open the maps. You're like, wait, what's going on here? Oh, wait. Right. So there's not a road, but there's heat map. So now I'm curious. Now I'm really curious.
So to, I would say, okay, well, let's solve your curiosity. I would go to satellite or hybrid. Something's there.
Yep.
So
I bet that's So knowing Sam Houston National Forest, my guess is that there's a gate there where they don't permit vehicles, but cyclists and hikers and stuff can still get through. That's exactly what it looks like. Obviously, we don't have street view in the National Forest. Yeah, and you can even see it's like paved up until there, right? And
Yeah.
So that's interesting. That's a good way to find out. But again, heat maps are just so cool.
Yeah.
This is completely random, but just a tip on heat maps. Anytime you zoom out and you see like squiggly lines, that's single track. That's a good way. Like, where are all the mountain bike trails in an area? Just zoom out a little bit, and anytime you see condensed squiggly lines, that's your single track.
And heat maps were a fascinating thing that took months and months and months and months to develop before we could even get to the design. It's a lot of math. Actually that's involved to, it's not a one-to-one, the heat's not a one-to-one thing. If all the heat was one-to-one, Houston, even though zoomed out right now, would look like it was on fire and you wouldn't see anything else. You would have roads that had, tens of thousands of trips on them that would just blur out everything else. So at various zoom levels, we are kind of adjusting the heat according to your view. And everything's broken out in tiles. I'll try to keep this short because we're getting into the nerdy stuff, but everything's broken out into a tile. So here, imagine there's a square that is a map tile. And so we have heat data associated with that map tile. We then look, there are 8 perimeter tiles around a single tile. So if this was a tile, there'd be, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tiles. And we'll take the heat from those tiles and factor that into the heat in the middle tile. Because if we didn't, this little road right here, you'd never see that, because if everything was one-to-one, you would only see like this super duper data intensive roads. So, but it's like, well, and especially with, what we're talking about, it's like, well, I want to see those obscure trips out in the middle of nowhere. And if everything was one-to-one, you would never find that, because something that had 5 trips on it would never show, because we're just, there's other things that have 10,000 trips on it or whatever. So that's kind of a little more, kind of background on the heat stuff.
It's smarter than we are, but we're grateful that it works.
Yes, grateful that there are smarter people than me. We are working on this. Kudos to Dan here for working on this.
Go Dan. I really like Dan because I love my heat maps.
Yes.
I'm ready to build a route. What do you think? Do you want to
actually, before, can I show surface type?
Yes.
Okay, I've mentioned surface type for a long time that it's coming, and
Yes,
it is finally coming. I even asked Zach, I was like, "Can I show this on the episode?"
Whoa! So this is hot fire breaking news.
We've told people it's coming,
but nobody's ever seen it.
Well, no, yeah, nobody's ever seen it. It's not implemented yet. And I'm sure there's probably a couple listeners who are rolling their eyes right now and being like, I've heard this Kevin guy talk about surface type before.
All right, we're going to see it with our own eyes, though. So what do we got?
Yeah. And this is just, kind of the designs that we're working on where we'll have surface type information integrated into both the route line and the elevation profile.
Ooh.
So what we're using right now is we have access, we license OSM, we get their data, and they have surface type data. So the big challenge was one, taking all of their various classifications of surface type and funneling them down into some consumable categories. So paved, gravel, dirt, unknown. So for us, it was like, well, what is a class 2 dirt high? There's all these like obscure things. It's like, well, is that dirt? Is it gravel? Is it unpaved? Like, what are these things?
Yeah.
So spend some time kind of getting those into what we feel are appropriate categories, and then assigning them kind of a design and a look and a feel. So we've got paved, gravel, dirt, unknown,
and this will happen automatically as you create a route. It'll start segmenting it into this. Okay.
Correct.
And let me make sure I understood this correctly as well. So on your elevation profile, it's going to show you what type of surface that elevation is on.
Yeah. So
if you're like climbing a hill, you'll be able to say, okay, that's a gravel hill climb versus a paved hill climb, theoretically.
Right. So here we are on a big super duper route, Gorge Backcountry by our good friend Gabe. So we will list the percentages over here of the route.
Yeah.
And we have little, designs associated with them. So here you can see right here, dash.
I love that.
Right. Yeah. So you will actually be able to see when, viewing a route and when using the route planner.
That's cool.
Where those sections are.
Because whenever I'm doing my East Texas Showdown, this race that I'm putting on this October, and everybody wants to know pavement versus gravel. And so I did the street view, and I did the select tool, and I selected every section of pavement and turned it to black. And then I went through and like calculated all the miles, and it turned out to be exactly 50 to 50. But I mean, it took me a while to like go through and do all that. So this would be pretty sweet.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I wish I could give you that time back.
No.
Yeah, here in 1 to 2 months, you'll go from spending considerable amount of time to spending zero amount of time because it will be all right in front of you. And just
I really like the integration to the elevation as well, and incorporating the surface type into the elevation. Kudos on that. That's a great idea.
Yeah, and there'll be more information here as I kind of zoom in and do things, but you'll be able to kind of make, it's like, okay, well, I selected this section of the surface type, the different surface type. And then just like making a selection of the elevation profile, we give you stats. We'll actually give you a surface type stat box here.
Right.
So here's your asphalt, but here's also, your grade, how much it is, and elevation stuff. So
it's so cool. RideWithGPS is making the outdoors so freaking accessible, man. I mean, we're taking away all the barriers to entry. It feels like, I mean, you got your fitness, you got your equipment, but actually being able to put together a route, put together an adventure wherever you're going, and have really good data to go off of is pretty sweet.
We like it.
You want to show them how you want to fire the bad boy up and show them how
we can do that.
I think what I want to do for the first example is, let's say that you're going into an area. I mean, you can use someone local to you, but I mean, let's say someone's going into an area for the first time. What are the steps to building a route? I'll share what I do real quick, and then I want to hear what you recommend. But, if I'm going to an area for the first time, a lot of times the first thing that I will do is go to bikepacking.com, especially if I'm doing a bikepacking trip, which is the majority of my audience. I mean, that's what they're looking to do. Bikepacking.com is obviously a great resource. They've done a lot of the work. A lot of the riders have done great work finding the POIs, all that stuff. And they use RideWithGPS, so you can take the route file directly off of bikepacking.com, import it into RideWithGPS, and then from there you can manipulate those routes if you want to. And the other thing that I use is y'all search for routes, where you can search any public routes that anybody's ridden in an area. You can search those. So that's how I approach. If I'm going to a new area, that's my first two steps.
Yeah. And I think, that's a great, those are two great steps that could kind of, I would probably personally, it depends on what I'm doing, do I have a goal in mind? Did I pre-plan something, or did I show up somewhere?
Yeah. In this scenario, so we're going to do a just showed up scenario later. This one is, for me, a lot of the fun in an adventure is planning it from home. And there's a saying that, adventure starts when things go wrong. But there's no reason to make it harder on yourself. And we do have a lot of great tools. And so I'll spend a considerable amount of time, building routes, looking at other routes, looking at other rides, and creating it. I think, what I want to share with people is I think that's the time to do your planning. Sit at home, pull up your desktop, and create a route based on your own physicality, your time limit, how far you want to ride, whatever you're trying to do, But so that's the example I want to show here is you're sitting at home, you got some time, and you want to build a route in a new area.
Yeah, and I would say, for maybe particularly this audience, bikepacking.com is obviously a fantastic resource. I personally like their S240 map, their overnighters map. That's what I have time for. That's what I'm interested in. I'm really excited for them to continue building that out and continue getting submissions. I would love it if there was, a cool overnighter in every town and every city in the world. We have a find page, plenty of stuff on there. You can search zillions and trillions of routes and rides. We have a nice ambassador directory. So if I were just to, search somewhere, this is a Portland search, we have area ambassadors where we funnel their routes up to the top. These are kind of vetted. So if I just search Portland with 50 miles, it's like, okay, here is 530,000 results. Right. That's no good. That sucks. So it's like,
tells you a lot of people are using your service.
Well,
though.
Yeah, I know. But for a consumer who's looking to do something or find something, it's like, no.
That's too much.
Give me 10, give me 12, give me whatever. And you can refine your search as you please. But we'll funnel these area ambassadors routes up to the top. We know that they're vetted, they're good, they've been created by someone who's kind of a stakeholder in their community. So to us, someone should, if ambassador route falls in the search criteria, we should definitely make sure, the user finds that first, or sees that first, or at least has the opportunity to find that. And then we also have kind of the directory of this as well with the map.
So these are all routes that your ambassadors have
area
created,
ambassadors have put together. Yeah. So, and I can kind of click around on the map, and we give kind of a breakdown to Oregon Stampede. So these are, the ambassador routes they have more photos, more prominent photos. They have detailed information over here, points of interest. Lots of routes have points of interest. I can go to standard routes.
Yeah, it's a little bit more, so what I find, like if you're going to use the find feature, there's going to be a lot of just rides from people that don't have pictures, don't have any information. It's just rides that they uploaded. But yeah, the ambassador routes, there's pictures, there's POIs, there's descriptions, there's all that extra information that's going to be more helpful to build a route, or, a good starting point.
Right. So if you see something you like and you're maybe not ready to plan, sprinkle throughout the website. We have, a number of different options. I would say pinning is great. This adds it to your pinned list. You didn't make a copy of it. You didn't do anything. This just like puts it in your pinned list as a reminder so you can easily find it later. On your homepage, you have a pinned list of routes and rides, and in the mobile app, you have a list of pinned routes and rides. So maybe you want, it's like, maybe I'm just dinking around right now, but I know I'm going to want to do some heavy editing and planning this weekend. Maybe I got really far down like a search rabbit hole, and I just found this obscure thing that maybe I want to use later or whatever. Let's, just pin it, and then you can find it, in a matter of seconds later.
Yeah.
If you are into the planning mindset, we have a nice feature that is just the open in route planner direct option. So this gives me the exact thing. I'm in my account. This gives me everything. And now I can start, you could not do any editing to this. Or you could in fact load it in and then do your thing.
Yeah. So some things to do in this one would be potentially you might want to go different distances per day and find different campsites.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So a good one would be to kind of, maybe we're starting from somewhere else.
Ooh, and there's water, so we could look at doing a bike pack rafting trip and incorporate some water too.
We can definitely get to some bike rafting stuff. So got our start here, but maybe we are not. Maybe this isn't where we're starting. Maybe we're in the Dalles or whatever. So I would use the elevation profile over here, and you can kind of see the blue dot follows the point on the elevation on the route, corresponds to the elevation profile. So I'd come over here and click and hold and drag and select, and then we give you some selection tools over here. So I'd click delete selection. And now that moves my start marker over here. So to kind of quickly touch on control points are these little white dots. Every time you click on the map to create a piece of route, you drop a control point. You can also add these or remove these to help you manipulate your route. So this one's actually placed pretty good here, so I can remove that if I wanted to. And then what I can do is grab the start and I can kind of drag it around, and you can see the black line is the new proposed route or whatever. But I could use control points to lock off everything. So you saw, I can do this, and now if I'm like moving the route line, this is affecting everything in between the start icon and this next control point here.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't want that. I just want to move the start. So what I'll do is I'll add a control point here. And what I did is I locked off the rest of the route from being manipulated when I do drag and drop. So now I can grab the start icon and I can drag it. I could literally drag it across the ocean if I wanted to, and it wouldn't affect anything past that little control point. So I can drag it all the way over here to the Dalles. And maybe, it's like, well, maybe I didn't want to do that. Maybe I wanted to go on this McCoy road, so I can add one there. I can drag it into here. Maybe this isn't where I wanted to go. Maybe this isn't how I wanted to get out of the town, so I can do like that. And if you mess anything up, you can always come up and undo. Now I'm back to where
that undo button has saved me many a times.
Yes, everyone's friend.
Every once in a while, I'll get a little crazy and I'll click where I'm not supposed to, and all of a sudden it adds 150 miles on the route. You're like, whoa, what did I do?
No, get back here.
Undo is your friend. Yep.
Additionally, you can click add new, and you can start planning a different route.
I like this. Now, this is a great feature here.
Yeah, so what this does is gray out the route that was there.
Right.
And now I can just click once I'm back to add-on routes. And
see, I think you use that in conjunction with the heat maps. So you take the route that they have, turn on the heat maps, and now you're like, if you're saying, okay, how to get there, for example, or, what else might be cool. I'll just give an example. Like I was looking at a Texas route recently that's published, and I saw it was really close to this cool campsite, but it wasn't on it. And so I got on, I took the route and I started playing around with it. I'm like, oh, you can easily make this a 3-day route and incorporate this other campsite. And that's what I did. You just do that overlay, or bring in another one. And
yeah, so if I really wanted to kind of go rogue, then I can just use this as kind of a guide. And this was our original trace feature, which was I could just use this as a trace, kind of a stencil. And then if I wanted to go off of it, I could go away from it. Or if I just wanted to follow it along, I could follow it on the whole time. Or I can use this, and this is how I kind of use it, is I like to plan my own route. And I just kind of like to plan it over to where I want to join up with the route. So I'm right next to this. I can toggle back here. Now we're going to go back and do what I had previously done, where I select this. I click delete selection. I switch back to this. And every time there's a grayed out route, the green dot acts as the start marker for the other route. So I can just, click undo and actually get in there.
See how that happens?
Yes, exactly. And then really get in there and join everything up. And now I've got my new start point and my new, I cut this out, and now I'm starting from my hotel or my other campsite.
Can you just drag the dead end, the end point to the start point?
The end of the route?
Yeah.
Yeah, I sure could.
It's interesting. It doesn't say end, does it?
No, we just it'll show the endpoint if you're in the route view. So if you're viewing the route, but we want you to have, right. We want you to have a control point because that gives you tools.
Makes sense.
So, and this is kind of cool where it's like, oh, dang, that POI was in my way. You can drag these. This is kind of new as of a couple of years ago. You can drag it away and then you can drag it back when you're ready to go. So yeah, I can do this all the way over here.
So how to create a POI? Real basic.
You led me right to it. Click menu. You have the option to drop a POI over here, click anywhere on the map. Select something. You can add in a URL, a description, photos, whatever you want, save. There it is. You can drag it around wherever you want, and then you can delete it. Perhaps the easier and a way to get more access is last May, we introduced the right-click menu. So I can simply right-click anywhere, and I can get a number of options. So I can right-click, add POI, and now I can select my bar or whatever icon.
You go straight to the bar every time. You know where it is.
We're in Portland. Unfortunately, there's not a bar here in the middle of the river. But
someone should create one.
Should do it, yeah. The right-click menu is great. If I'm on the route itself, I get a number of other options. And one, show street view. This really helps you refine your street view capabilities here. Because let's say I'm kind of zoomed out here planning, and I get my little man, it's like, where exactly am I street viewing here? It's not kind of precise unless I really zoom in on it. But if I really want to do it right here, I can just right click, and now I can see this little hairpin turn.
Oh man, dude, that is so handy. I can't tell you how many times I've you street view to a general area, and then you go up and down the road actually looking for the road that you're trying to find or the feature or whatever.
Yeah, it's great. Smart. I don't know how this was Zach's idea, was the right click menu. I don't know how we survived this long without the right click. It's so cool.
Yeah.
And there's tons of great, information. What we found a lot of folks like to do is, they'll find a location. And this is actually good here. Let's go to map, where, they'll find a location that they're interested in. Here's the Beaver Tail Campground. They'll right click, show latitude, longitude, copy that, right click, add a POI, and then they can paste in the latitude, longitude. And so in a matter of seconds, now I have my visual indicator, and I also have, coordinates that I can use somewhere else, or use to be like, send to someone, hey, this is exactly where I'm going to be camping this night. Not like, hey, I'm going to be at Beaver Tail Recreation Site. Be like, well, where is that? I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But if you send me these coordinates, I can, pinpoint that spot exactly.
Now, what about, there's a feature I know you were telling me about that allows you to view, you view images from rides that RideWithGPS members used or uploaded, but then you can also see like Google photos and stuff too.
Yes. Yeah. And this is kind of, I was using this area. And this is kind of personal, or to me, where like I can't do the whole Oregon Stampede route in a day. I certainly know a lot of people who can. But I would be looking to camp halfway through. That's how I roll. So, they've provided camping stuff here for me, but maybe that's not what I want. And I'm kind of panning the map around and I see, Beavertail Campground. That looks super cool. So I can kind of zoom in. I can change to satellite if I want. It's like, well, I see some heat there. So somebody must have gone there. And this looks like a fair amount of people have gone there. But if I drag my little man, I don't get any street view, but there is a little blue circle here called Google Photos. And then there's another one over here. I'll actually go back to maps. So these kind of are more clear to show and what they look like. But yeah, you can see these little circles. We can street view these as well. So I can drop this and lo and behold, I can actually see what this campsite looks like.
Wow.
It's like, oh, okay.
Now you definitely want to stay there.
Now I definitely want to stay night there. Fire pit and 2 picnic tables, and I'm on probably the coolest river in the entire state.
I see trees for my hammocks. That's always something I'm looking for.
Yeah, exactly. So what I would do is come over here, find my little spot in the elevation profile. I would make a selection. I would delete this selection, go into add route. So what this does is this breaks it into 2 sections, the front section and the half section. And I still have the back section here at the little start. So now I can plan my route over to the campground, right click, add POI, and camping, Beavertail. Do I still have it there? I do.
Yes, you do.
Save. Perfect. And now I can just plan back, and then I can tap. Oh, now I got a new camp spot. And you had mentioned pack rafting, bike rafting.
Yeah, because there's a draw the line feature, which is just useful if you're bike rafting, if you're on single track. Sometimes there's single track that I found where it'll route it. Sometimes it won't. Most of the times it won't, I find. And also I've seen places where I know that there's a bike path, or I know that there's, a way to get across this interstate, but the GPS may not know it. And so you can draw a line. I mean, there's lots of reasons to have a draw your line, but.
Right. So draw lines. You can. So let's get rid of this. So let's say you wanted to bike to this point in the Deschutes
that's
River.
Perfect. Yeah, you bike the first and you raft home. Boom.
Right. So I'm going to delete that.
I went on one bike rafting trip, so now I'm an expert, man. Now it's all bike rafting.
And I've never been, so I'm an expert route planner for that type of stuff. Draw lines. Yeah. So you can draw lines. You can drag and drop with draw lines, or draw lines allows you to click. So I can simply click. I can manipulate. This one's going to be a little obscure because it's so curvy. There's a bunch of turns as opposed to just like a straight shot. But you get the idea of.
But here's the thing: while you're doing this, what I'm thinking. I have it in satellite when I'm doing this, and I'm also looking for cool things along the way. Maybe a campsite along the way. So yeah, it's maybe a little bit labor intensive to click, but I always like right there.
Right.
What is that? It looks like. That's a trail versus going on the river. Okay. That's what.
Right. So there's a bridge going over, but I know somewhere here is, well, I guess you wouldn't be pack rafting White River Falls, but you could use this satellite mode. It's like, do I want to go over the giant waterfall, or do I want to go the other way?
Yeah.
You can. And this actually, we can get into the weeds here. Let's do it.
Let's go.
So I'm planning. All right. What looks better over here? Let's go this way.
I think left looks good. It's a little more wider. Probably not as fast flowing.
Right. And this is a fast flowing river, but this is good. Okay. We've got our stuff. So now what would I do? I would go over here.
I know. You do a queue.
You do a queue.
Yeah.
Custom queues. So right. So as you use like the regular standard add a route, we automatically generate turn by turn instructions for you. So you can kind of scroll over here and see these. But if you're using draw lines, we're not going to have any of that. But anywhere you can on the route, you can add custom queues. So I would click custom queue, and then I would add in a queue here. And you can select a number of different options. So I would add stay left at the fork.
Save
and
your life.
If you wanted to get really crazy, you could say danger and call this danger.
Yeah.
And save. So now we have stay left at the fork. So if you were to do all this, save it, navigate it. Let's say you're navigating it with our mobile app. Our voice navigation would read this cue aloud to you. So, it doesn't just have to be road instructions. You can add a cue in and have it say anything in the world. And you can even, actually, I forgot, you could right click. So I'm going to add a custom cue. There is danger coming up, waterfall, pull out, or make sure you stay left, whatever. Tour operators use this function to, on the routes that their guests go on, they put, paragraphs of information for an audio tour. So historical context or attractions that are coming up and stuff like that. Our app will use text to speech and read whatever you put there. So, and I guess it's another good point with the mobile app and navigation, will give you a 1/4 mile notification before this queue. So we'll notify you that something is coming up. And if you put, important things in there, you'll get a 1/4 mile notification. And then as you get up there, we will actually give you that notification. So we'll give you plenty of opportunity to know that this is coming up. And we also have metrics in the app, which if we hopefully get to the mobile app as we're running on time. You can get, we'll give you an estimated time to a queue. We'll give you estimated time to your destination. We'll also give you an estimated time to queue. So you can see a countdown until you get to this spot. So we'll give you just so much, so many ways to get, as much information as you want while you are out there.
Yeah. And that's based on real-time data. That's not an estimated guess. No. It's you're traveling this fast and it's updating it in real time.
Correct. So right here, we're planning this route, 7 hours, 14 minutes. This is using your historical ride data to give you an estimated time. Mine's really slow because of the last 1.5 years I've been mostly running. So I'm running very slowly. And so it thinks that I'm very slow riding. But once you launch navigation, a couple minutes after, we start constantly updating the estimated time with your in-ride navigation metrics or heuristics that we call it. So if you are riding, let's say you're doing this exact route and you're riding your bike along, we'll give you an estimated time based on your ride stats of that current ride. Now, let's say you hop off and you jump in a raft, and now you start going 3 miles an hour. You'll start to see your estimated time to arrival expand into the future because you're now going slower, and your estimated ride time, is going to be much later than if you were riding a bicycle. You're now going 3 miles an hour, and we're going to reflect that.
Yeah.
And all of, the estimated time to arrival and estimated time to queue will all be reflective of that. And it's wildly accurate.
Yeah, that's super cool.
We'll be out for hours and hours on a ride, and we'll get back generally within like 7 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes of the estimated time.
Yeah, I mean, you can think of hundreds of reasons why that would be nice. If you're running short on time, daylight, you need to make by a campsite at a certain time. I mean, or a restaurant before it closes. I mean, there's just so many times. And, one way we use this is recreationally, but also, I mean, athletes are using these when they're on, big adventures and they're sleep deprived, and having that kind of information, knowing, am I going to get to that town before everything closes, is you can just see how that would be important. It's like, okay, am I making a big push right now to get to that restaurant before it closes, or am I just going to sleep and get my rest now and maybe hit it in the morning or whatever? I mean, that's
Right. Yeah. And in that mobile app, when you're navigating, you can use the elevation profile, what we call scrubbing it, and you can scrub it. So exactly what you said, you could be at the base of a climb navigating, and you could drag the elevation profile over to the top of that climb and see how long it's estimated for you to get to the top of that peak. So
go ahead.
Oh, no. If you want to hop over to mobile, we can certainly do that.
I think that's a great overview of, we covered a lot of what you can do from a desktop perspective. So now that we've, quote unquote, created a route, we have something we're happy with, I think we switch over to mobile. And I think, going over some of the features of mobile, and then also, if you were to show up in a new area and have the heat maps and want to create a route that way,
yeah, okay.
I'll let you switch over. All right, everybody, we are on mobile now. Mm-hmm. Isn't technology cool? This is so awesome. One question I have about mobile is your ability to use routes offline and manipulate them offline.
It's a great question, and something that's mostly what you asked for, not currently available, but something that we're working towards. So right now, if you wanted to edit an existing route or plan an existing route, you could do it offline, but you wouldn't be able to save it and then use it. You would need a cell connection for that, or a Wi-Fi connection.
Okay.
What we're working towards is more robust offline capabilities to where you can download an area for offline use and not necessarily need a route in that area. You could just download all these tiles, and then you would be able to plan inside of that area, whether you had service or not. So when you downloaded that area, you would also download, directions in that area, routing related information in that area, and then could do anything you wanted without a connection.
That's cool. Yeah, I've seen that before. I think where you just download the section of map that you need, and you have all the functionality there. So what you have right now is on your desktop, or from Wi-Fi at home, you can create routes on your desktop or mobile, and then they're available. You download them, and then they're available on your device, whether you have service or not.
Correct. Yeah, I plan or I find. So a little bit earlier we were looking at the Oregon Stampede route, and I pinned it. And here I am in the mobile app. It's right at the top of my pinned list in my library. I can select my little 3-dot menu, and I can click navigate or download right away, or I can select the route and get more information here. I can, look at a bunch of stuff. There's the photos, click little button, and
whenever you expand the bottom elevation there, you can also zoom in on it, and which I find,
you can use your little 2 fingers and get really fine-tuned in there.
That's helpful, because oftentimes, especially on mobile, when you see that climb, you're like, woo! But if you zoom it out, it's...
Yeah, if you just flatten everything out, it works out. It works out in the field.
You're like, that's nothing.
And then you can click download and download. And then we'll say downloading, and you'll have an offline spot. And here I am. The app is downloading the map tiles, the route line, and all of the points of interest and everything.
Yeah. So that's a critical point for anyone creating a route, is to make sure you offline it before you get out and about.
Yeah.
Because that'll allow you, otherwise, you would need a cell phone service to be able to use the route. And what we talked about doing, especially if you're using your phone, is switching to an airplane mode and still having that capability.
Yeah, this is do all your stuff, download it for offline use, and then before you even leave, put your phone into airplane mode, and you'll still get the full experience in airplane mode.
All right, so we're in mobile. And
we're in mobile.
We've created a route, and now we're riding the route.
Right. So this is actually what you did whenever because we're using your example.
Okay.
So again, this is just something that we have. So we'll plan a route that we've done a ride on before, and then we can do both of them at the same time to simulate stuff. In this case, we're using your Sam Houston route, your gravel ride, and these are your actual metrics. So,
look at me going. I got to 12 miles an hour. 12.
Right. So let's see. First thing you can do, you see you have two different metric screens down here. If you long press one of them, we've got a bunch of other metrics that you can select here.
Oh, I didn't know that. So you can customize your dashboard for the information you want. Wow.
Yeah. So oftentimes what we'll see are people will have they'll have a metrics side. So over here, it's like, okay, I can have heart rate. I can have, my moving time. I can have my probably like average. I can have my average moving speed. I can have all these, stats, metrics related things. And then over here, I can have all my navigation metrics. So I can have my speed and my distance. And if I want my duration, but here, estimated time. I can also have estimated time to my arrival. I can select estimated time to queue. So we will show your spot on the elevation profile as you ride along, exactly where it is. So we'll go over, there you are going along. You can tap the elevation profile and get metrics on the specific part. We can also give you estimated time. So here, to get to this spot, you're estimated to be there in 21 minutes and 49 seconds and counting down.
Oh, interesting. So even if you just, because you essentially say, okay, how long before I get to that downhill, or how long before I get to the top of that climb or whatever. And it's giving you that estimated time of arrival in real time.
Yes, correct.
Wow. Hey, this is a really great app y'all got here, Kevin.
Hey, thanks. And it's good. We just got in the scenario. This is what we do on a daily basis and wish we did better of. It's like, you didn't know that you could long press metrics and select different metrics. It's like, it's those are the types, like, how do we have so much information and so many tools and so many options and so much value, but it's so hard to like consolidate a million things down into 2 buttons.
Yeah.
Or 4 buttons, and then let you access, 50 tools, but we still need to give you the biggest map screen that we possibly can.
A question about queues. Yes. So that queue on this one is my first right turn there. And so when we create routes, queues are automatically generated for turns.
Yes.
My question is, are they automatically generated for POIs as well?
No, they are not.
Okay.
And
so that would be something where if somebody wanted to, they could add a queue for that. But
they'd add a queue, and then they could add a point of interest as well if they wanted a visual notification.
Yeah. And then if you're just riding along and you're like, well, your campsite, you go to your elevation, you could push it and it's going to give you an ETA that way as well. Or you got your lunch. So how long till we get to lunch there?
Right, exactly. So let's see, you're going this way. Let's go.
Yeah, we're going right. We're going to that one on the
Going
northeast.
right. So we'll expand, we'll click. So there we go. So here's our lunch spot. Hour and 10 minutes till lunch.
Oh, good. Because I'm getting hungry.
I'm always hungry. That's my biggest downfall is I burn too many calories. I can never keep enough food on me.
Now, what about, we know this route goes, but let's say that you come across, can you show us, you come to an area and you need to do a reroute or something
Oh, it's even on the computer screen too.
Is that your lovely wife?
That is my lovely wife, Ash.
Text her back and say we're getting close or something.
she'll be fine. I'll let her deal with the anticipation. Right. Okay, so you said, what if I get to?
Yeah, private property. I don't know. A road is washed out.
Road is washed out. Great. Okay, so you come to something and you got to do something. You got to make some alternate arrangements. Great. So let's go back here. We have our Sam restaurant tour here. This is what we're navigating. All right. So what we did, we clicked back. We were navigating the Sam Houston tour route. And so it's like, okay, we came to something where we need to make alternate plans. Great.
Right.
So I put the back button. Here I am at my route library. There's a Sam restaurant tour that I'm navigating. So I'll select it. I'll click the little menu button up here in the top right, and I'll click edit. So here's the route that we're currently navigating. But I just loaded it into the route planner. So let's make some changes. So we have the tools option down at the bottom of the screen, just below the elevation profile. And this will give us a number of different editing capabilities. I can change the various routing types. If I wanted to add a new camp spot, I could click, hold, and drag a new camp spot up here. So I can drag a POI on there if I want. I can edit it. I can move it by just dragging the map around, refining it, tap it. There's our new camp spot. I also have a number of kind of change route options here. Won't get into those yet because I can zoom in on the route. And once you get in, we will carry over the control points from the route that was planned. And this will give you ways to kind of manipulate it. So as you zoom in, there are all the control points.
Okay.
And, so I can tap a control point and I can delete that control point. I can actually route to there, or I can move the control points. And moving it, it's like, okay, well, maybe we don't want to, maybe right there was maybe right there was the problem spot that we got to, and we needed to take a detour around it. So I'll tap the control point and I will drag it up there to Farm to Market Road 946, and we'll show you the preview of the new proposed routing section.
Yeah.
And I will tap the map again, and we just edited the route.
Yeah, that was easy.
That was very easy. And now for time's sake, what I'll do is I'll say that, okay, I'm done. That's all I needed to do. That looks like Willow Springs Road was the problem road. We needed to get around Willow Springs Road. And that was it. So we made a quick change. We added a new camp spot. Things are looking good. So I can click done and then finish. We'll give you the option of either saving the new route or actually not saving and just navigating right away. So maybe you're, two scenarios here. One, maybe you're at lunch and you're actually planning the next day's route. So you're not editing the route that you're currently navigating. So you could just click save and then save your updated day 2 route.
Right.
Or you are in fact having an issue and you needed to get around something like we're doing here. I could do that. It's like, well, I just need to navigate this updated route. I don't need to save this new thing. So instead of just saving, you can click navigate straight away, and we'll drop you into the new route that is updated.
One note on that, my girlfriend just did a route and she didn't know she recorded the data because she's like, no, I just navigated it. But just for people listening, when you hit navigate, RideWithGPS automatically starts recording the route that you're on.
Correct. Yeah. And that's, a good thing to point out. Yeah. You can just push the record button and record a ride. If you're on a route to a ride and you push navigate, we will start a recording because we need your GPS location in order to give you elevation, your spot on the elevation, and all the cues and stuff like that. We need to know where you're at and what you're doing. So we are recording and we are also navigating you. A lot of folks will just actually, you can have a route and you're viewing a route, and I can just tap the show my location button. And sometimes this can kind of be all you need. Maybe you don't need the voice navigation, or there's some other scenario. You can just be viewing a route, and then down at the bottom right, there is the tap my location, and you'll see my location just showed up. Here I am sitting at the office. We're not going to be able to give you any navigational cues or anything like that, but you can always kind of see your current location in reference to the route.
So here, this is a good view right here. Would you turn on heat maps and show how good heat maps are, especially if you're going to just roll off the plane into Portland and you wanted to go on a bike ride? Just want to get out and stretch your legs.
Yeah.
Turn on heat maps. You can see where you are.
So, that is accessible down in the bottom left corner of the map area. You'll see the map options button. And this will give you, all of the available map options for you. So if you're navigating, you can have directional arrows on the route, distance markers. You can kind of turn POIs on and off while you're riding. Some routes are very robust with POIs, and maybe they visually get in the way for you.
Yeah.
So you can turn them off, and then you can turn them back on later if you want.
Yeah.
We'll show you the green little Q icons. If you're in the city, you probably don't want that because there's going to be a lot of them. Map scale, and then the heat map there. So I can turn the heat map on. And let's say while I'm in here, I'm going to change the map type. So we have all these other map types here that you can select. And when you're done, I will click done. And this will bring me back to, the recording or navigating screen, or when you're just viewing the route, and then that will load everything on. So you'll now see the abundance of heat here that we loaded onto the map. So here I am.
So the red line there is actually your route, just to point that out.
Oh, yes. Yeah. You're absolutely right. The red line there, is the route that I was viewing.
Yeah.
And then all of the pinkish and bluish hues are the heat. Zooming way in, and you can see.
Oh, wow. You can see people ride from RideWithGPS. So you're at RideWithGPS headquarters right now. So you can tell that people are coming and going from there.
Right. Which is actually something good to point out, where we have, in the heat map data, we've obscured privacy zones. So, if this was, let's say this was my home, it was set as my home location, I had a privacy zone set around it, this swath wouldn't be showing. This is showing because, yes, there have been.
Yeah, you don't mind people knowing that RideWithGPS is here and people ride bikes in and out, right?
Well, yeah. This is because, I don't have a privacy zone set up around my office, and I've, have probably 1,000 rides that have ended or started here, as have a number of other, obviously other employees. We all ride our bike into the office, or we did prior to a year ago. But yeah, as you zoom in and zoom out, you get a more clear picture of the heat.
Yeah, the privacy stuff, I don't know how many people know this, but one thing I've heard is that thieves can use that. If they're like, oh, you post a picture of your $10,000 bike, and oh, you always start and stop from the same place. It's just, it's good. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why privacy can be important, but I've certainly set mine is all private, but before that, I had a nice 10-mile or couple mile radius set up around my home, just for privacy. No one needs to know exactly where you live and be able to track you. Right. Exactly. A little tracking's okay, right? A little tracking. Yeah, we're all okay with a little tracking.
I have a cargo bike and I ride with my little girls, and I like to take photos. And for me, the term digital diary sounds a little whatever, but that's kind of what it is for me. And I like the ability to go back and see my rides and see photos that I took and see pictures of myself, me riding to cool places.
No, I love that too. I mean, I like to go back and look at, and another feature of RideWithGPS is when you take pictures, you can have a choice to automatically populate them to your route, right? So there you go.
Yeah. So if we have access to the photos, and you take a photo with your camera app, there's EXIF data, which is latitude, longitude coordinates with your photo, and also a timestamp. So we will match up those timestamps and latitude, longitude coordinates, and show you a little icon where that photo was taken exactly on your route, which is cool. Oh, and I should probably also, for anybody that likes scouting or whatnot, what I really love, it used to be that a photo was the only way you could drop a piece of kind of real-time information, have it saved to a spot. But under Tools, Add POI, you can actually add a POI as you ride. And there it is.
Yeah.
And when you save your ride, we'll save the POI to your ride. So you can actually save a ride that almost looks like a route. If you're scouting something or you're out in the middle of nowhere and you find some kind of cutty camp spot, you're like, there's no way I'm going to remember this for later, but this looks like a really cool spot. Just drop a quick POI, forget about it, save your ride, and boom, there it is for you later when your ride's uploaded.
I really wish that we had this conversation before I created East Texas Showdown, because it's 380 miles and it takes a long time to drive it and ride it and verify. And, so what I was doing is taking like notes on a notepad, like mile this, mile that. But then the problem is you move one of your control points and now the mileage is off. So now you only have like, a basic reference area, but
right.
Yeah, I didn't know about that either.
Yeah. To you, this kind of came out of some event operators who go out and scout the routes, and they do exactly what you were doing.
Yeah.
Like events, like, I need to mark this intersection or whatever, but they're not going to
resources, water, campsites, restaurants. I mean, roads that you absolutely should never drive on.
Right. Exactly.
A dog, vicious. I mean, my girlfriend actually got bit pretty severely. First time I'd ever been with anyone, and it was on my route, of course, that she got bit. Yeah, anyway, so I put a POI on that route. It's like, hey, we got a dog that's biting people. You might want to be aware of that.
Right. And this is where I was going with that. And then a dog is a better example. It's like, okay, well, a dog is coming at me. I'm not going to just stop right there and add a POI because they're going to toast me. So I'm going to get away from the dog, add my POI at a safe spot, tap this, click move, and then I'm going to move it back over here. Be like, okay, there's where the dog is.
That's the dog.
That's the dog.
You should add an angry dog POI.
I know that barking dog icon that you're thinking of for sure.
Yeah. What else, man? I mean, I think we've done a pretty good job of, running through desktop functionality, creating routes in the desktop, and then obviously switching over to the mobile. What features did we not cover you think people need to know about?
I mean, the route planner in mobile is pretty cool. It acts like the web route planner where you can just click and add and drag and drop. I can tap, I can move, you can change colors, you can do all sorts of things. Get to the elevation profile. You can really do a lot with the mobile route planner, and it's great out on it's great while you're out on tour too. Like if you're, in the middle of nowhere, but you're overnighting in places with service or whatever, there's nothing you really can't do in the mobile app. You don't need to bring a laptop with you everywhere you go. You can do it from your phone.
That's super cool. And another reason to, have it downloaded on your phone, for the functionality that you do have within the application. I like what oftentimes it doesn't matter how well you plan from home, weather happens, or you get a flat tire or mechanical and you're behind schedule, or maybe you're just bonking and you're tired. But I can't tell you how many times on night one where you didn't hit your mark or whatever, and you're feeling like you need to reroute, and make some changes. We actually just did it on our pack rafting trip. The rafting portion, this was actually really cool because we planned the route, everything looks good. Day one, it rained, it was cold the entire day. Day two, rained and cold the entire day. And so by day 3, we were behind schedule. We were a little beat up from just being out in the elements, and we had like another 8 hours to paddle. Or I hopped on RideWithGPS and I looked at heat maps, and I was like, I had our route pulled up and I could easily see where there was a port out for the boats, and we were like a mile away from our route where we could ride back to our cars. And so instead of having like an 8-hour float, we wound up having like an 1.5-hour bike ride back to our van. And that kind of speaks to how cool it is to have a boat and a bike on your with you, and you can kind of move between these two surfaces. But also having a tool that allows you in real time to make changes, because you're on a 3, 4, 5 day trip. Things are not going to always go right. So having that functionality is just really cool.
Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head pretty well in that, even if you don't have a route downloaded for offline use and you're in airplane mode, the heat map data is still available to you, and they're great for bailouts. So
Yes.
You've heard tons of stories of, I was in the middle of nowhere and I found this trail that cut off miles, hours, whatever, and I got out of there and I got out of a sticky situation.
Yeah. No, those heat maps, I just can't say enough about them. I could do a whole episode on heat maps, but there's just so many times where they come in handy. What else, my friend?
Yeah. Oh boy.
Schedule number 2.
I would love to schedule number 2. Hopefully the listeners will like to schedule number 2.
Oh, heck yeah.
I mean, I could.
Here's what's going to happen. We're going to get them out in the woods with all the information we provided, and then they're going to come up with problems, and they're going to be like, hey, y'all didn't talk about this. And we're like, hey, okay, well, now we're ready to talk about that.
Now we can do it. No, and I would, this is, maybe a great way to segue, towards the end or whatever of, I don't wish that upon anyone, but if that does happen, email us. Give us your suggestions. We don't grow and progress as a company unless we're interacting and engaging with our community. And that is best served as suggestions and feedback, at least in our point of view. So many things that you see on the web and in the mobile have been either suggested by or reinforced by our community, and lots of that stuff eventually trickles in and makes it into the platform.
Yeah.
And it's really, it's just a really good kind of ecosystem between all of us.
Yeah, and I can tell that we've been, working on putting this episode together for a couple months now and going back and forth. And, one thing that I've noticed is that you're always talking about the feedback that you've heard and how you're pivoting or you're working on that because the community has told you, X, Y, or Z. So I can kind of attest to that, definitely shoot them a line, get in contact. They're easy to get a hold of, nice guys, and they're all cyclists and looking to make a really good product that, it just keeps getting better. It's already a great product, but I mean, you're in the route building business, and got to keep up with technology, I guess, right? It's not going to stop. I don't think technology is going to stop. So it's just going to keep getting better and better and better.
Yeah. And I think about this sometimes or occasionally, every once in a while I'll be like, what is left? Like, yes, technology will, progress forever and ever and ever. But, in terms of route planning or ride recording, we're tasked with what is the next big thing? What is X, Y, and Z? I'm like, we've already done so much. But
watching the route in VR. So you create a route, and then you throw on your VR goggles and you watch the route. That's not something that I'd rather like go and experience it myself, but I could see that coming.
I think, with, things like Zwift and Ruby, and there are platforms coming. Well, they're already online, and they have some, like, imagine being on a trainer but riding, like a street view looking route. That stuff is starting to happen and become more and more. And I'm with you. It's like, well, I want to get out there.
Yeah, I like to prepare a good route because a good route allows you to relax and enjoy the experience more. And there's always different ways to approach the outdoors. And I think sometimes it's fun to have less planning and maybe a little more heavy on the adventure side.
Oh yeah.
But sometimes, like, especially if you're going, like for me, if I have a limited window and we both have kids and you really want to maximize that opportunity, the best thing you do is prepare ahead of time, create a good route. And then if something comes up, it comes up. But, preparing from home, I think is the way to go.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Because you can always change plans if you want to. So yeah, I like to have a plan. And if I want to deviate from that plan, then it's, sometimes it's up to me.
But again, everybody can do it however they want to do it. That's a great thing about it. And I mean, y'all have tools on your app that I didn't even know about, which I'm not surprised about. I use it all the time, but I remember telling you, I'm like, I know that you're going to blow my mind at least a few times on this podcast. And you definitely did.
Good.
I know there's probably a million more things we could talk about, but we might want to save that for another one, huh?
I'd be A-okay with that.
Well, I guess with that said, anything we didn't cover in this one that we missed, and kind of in line with feedback, is certainly reach out to me, reach out to RideWithGPS, and let us know what we missed. And if we do another one of these, if there's enough demand, maybe we can put together another one, maybe get a little bit more into the weeds and get even deeper and nerdier.
I use that term all the time.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Kevin, for coming on, man. I super appreciate it. I think it's going to be really helpful to people out there that are just really looking to create routes and go adventure in the outdoors and have some good tools.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm stoked when we started talking about this. This was really good.
All right, buddy. Go ride your damn bike. Peace.
Peace.
All right, friends. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I hope that you got a lot out of it. And again, we need to give a huge thank you to Kevin and the whole team over there at RideWithGPS for agreeing to put in the work and make this episode available to all you lovely people out there. Again, I want to remind you that this podcast is coming out on Thursday, May 12th. So if you're listening to it after that, then the video and everything is available. If you're an early bird, the journal entry and the video is being published by RideWithGPS today. So be checking your socials or just follow them over at ridewithgps.com/journal, and you'll be able to see it there. Of course, you could also sign up for their newsletter. I know they're going to be blasting it that way. So however you want to get notified, be on the lookout and go check out the video and give us some feedback. Let us know what you thought about this episode, this style of episode. We're trying something new over here at Bikes for Death, and hopefully y'all like it. But let me know. Your feedback is always appreciated. RideWithGPS is doing an excellent job putting this together in an easy format so that you'll be able to reference it whenever you're building a route or whenever you come up on a problem and you're like, oh, they talked about that on the Bikes for Death podcast. You can head over and find exactly where we talked about it, and it'll be there available for you whenever you want. Isn't that great? Isn't technology amazing? You know what else is amazing? Riding your bikes. So enough talking for today. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you to the newest patrons. And again, if you want to step up to be a sustaining member of the show and help Bikes for Death continue to be successful into the future, that is the best way to do it. Find out more over at bikesfordeath.com. That's it for me. Don't forget to kiss your mom and go ride your damn bike.
Oh shit to yourself. You left it super light right dead on the living room chair.